Welcome to Charts Today, US Open. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 26th of October, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the markets opening lower, quite big falls we're seeing here as well. So that's been quite key on the opening, and we've seen the futures down. Looking at the dollar, that's still looking very strong. The euro actually looking quite weak. So we're seeing here just the euro heading lower, dollar stronger, not so strong against the Japanese yen, the dollar falling here, the yen being a safe haven. Sterling just nudging 128, so the strong dollar having an effect there as well. Bitcoin is up slightly, but really has seen very little price action over the last several weeks. And taking a look at the futures, we're seeing the S&P future down just under 1%, and the Nasdaq future just down 2%. In Europe, the FTSE 100 index is down 1.3, and we have seen the DAX down as much as 2%. We've seen a little bit of recovery in Europe. The CAC 40 in France actually down 1.75%, so still pretty heavy there. And Asian markets mostly fell. Hong Kong down 1%, Japan down a third of a percent. We're seeing sentiment on crude looking lower, so crude oil pushing lower, and WTI also short-term bearish there. US nat gas sitting at $3.11 has turned short-term bearish as well. Gold actually up today, up 0.25%, and just starting to transition into medium-term bullish. So while markets are transitioning to bearish, gold is transitioning to bullish, and we've got multiple upside targets now on gold. Silver looking similar, and US 10-year yields sitting at 3.08% at the moment. So we are seeing a change here where we're bearish on that short-term chart now, so that's quite key. All of that data coming in from Thomson Reuters Icon or Metastock Zenith if you're using Metastock as a private user. Same system, and so a very cost-effective way of having real-time data. On this screen, we're now looking at data coming in from Yahoo, and here I do have real-time pricing, which is updating my daily charts. I don't have intraday data, but I have the real-time pricing, and here we see the S&P 500 index is falling away again today, down 1.5% at the open, and the Nasdaq down 2.5%. So really, we're seeing that's the Nasdaq 100, the Nasdaq composite down 2.25%, and we're seeing just generally this fall away is really driving things lower. And if we look at just what's going on here, we're seeing this relief rally to a lower high, then a move to a lower low. This is classic Dow theory, and that Dow pattern is what gives us the thrust downwards. So the bigger that move down, the bigger the thrust target, and we've got targets here of 10% lower on the S&P 500. On the Nasdaq, we're seeing a target on the 1% chart of nearly 13% lower. Looking at the Dow Jones, we're down 1% here, and we've got downside potential of 11% there as well. So across the board, we are seeing potential for the market to fall quite a bit further. And just in Europe, we're seeing stocks like Everaz in the UK down 8%. We're seeing some very big falls here. Looking at the Nasdaq 100, just looking at the majors, we see Alphabet down 3%. That's not quite as bad as was looking in post trading yesterday, but falling away 3% after last night's results. Amazon down 7% actually after last night's results. So that's taking Amazon back to levels that we haven't seen since June. So we're seeing multi-month lows here, and this relative trend on Amazon is just starting to crumble really. And looking at Apple, we're down 1.5%. Apple holding its relative strength against the market, so looking a little bit better. Facebook back below the 150 level, down 2% today, with those downside targets still in train. Microsoft down 1.25%, so again relatively resilient versus some of the others. Tesla down 1%, looking like Tesla's going to end on a very strong week, the strongest week it's probably seen in some years. A good recovery there. Nvidia's been very badly hit this week, down to another 3% today, and Netflix also pushing lower as well. Taking a look at the leaderboard just on the Nasdaq, or the laggards, we're seeing here we only have 5 stocks up: Expedia, Intel, Comcast, Biomarin, and Regeneration Group. So there are a few stocks up, but the sea of red is massively outweighing the up. And we're seeing stocks like Western Digital down 17%. I mean, really big falls going on here. Was already in a downtrend. You expect to see big falls in downtrends. Cerner down some 14%. Seagate down 12%. A lot of these tech stocks unwinding. Charter down 7%, and Amazon, as we mentioned, down 7%. So we are seeing some really big falls in prices there. Taking a look at the Dow, if we look at there's one stock up, and that's Intel, up 3%, bucking the trend here. But if we look on the other side, all this data coming in from Yahoo Finance. On the other side, we've got quite a lot of stocks down near 2%. Home Depot, Cisco Systems, Caterpillar's had a pretty torrid time of late, and we're seeing really just a lot of these stocks diving, generating new targets. Some don't have targets because we need a thrust to generate that target. We need a relief rally and then a move lower. Some have just continued to fall, but some do have these downside targets. We see here one on Amex, for example. So it's a case of just looking at where we're seeing those selling thrusts. Remembering this is my weekly, my 1%, there's my long-term view across the top, my medium term, which is daily, with a 0.5% with more targets. And then because I don't have intraday data on Yahoo, I'm looking at my on-balance volume, some moving averages, and the relative strength relative to the Dow Jones Index. So I can see, for example, here that we've outperformed by 5% on American Express this year. Looking at the S&P 500, again, it's just a case of going to the leaderboard. We've got a lot down. We've got quite a lot of stocks, so like Mohawk down 18%. Western Digital we've already mentioned. Seagate we mentioned. Some second liner stocks like SVP, that's down. So we are seeing quite big falls, and there are a handful of rises, but we're massively outweighed by the fallers here. We can see in the 500 list. So if you want to see the downside potential on your own stocks, or whether you're still in an uptrend, just click on any of these, and that's how you do it. That's it for today. It looks like we're going to end up on a pretty bad note for the week. Until Monday, hope you have a great weekend. Happy charting. See you then.